If you've ever wanted to reduce your use of single-use plastics, beeswax wraps are a great option to replace that plastic cling wrap that, quite honestly, never works the way we want it to anyways. Beeswax wraps are a much more eco-friendly option when it comes to covering and protecting your food, wrapping up your cheeses, veggies, fruits, and so much more. I had used that plastic cling wrap for years and had always wished for a more sustainable alternative. So when I first heard about beeswax wraps and started noticing that they were becoming more popular, I was really excited to have that option. Since I've started using them, I've never looked back, and seriously, they are so much fun to make and really easy too. All right, let's get started with our DIY beeswax wraps. To make your wraps, you're going to need some cuts of 100% cotton fabric. I like having a few different sizes, something a bit smaller. This one here is 7 inches by 7 inches, which I love using for cheeses, oranges, and smaller vegetables, like my cut onions. And then a larger size, this one here is 10 inches by 10 inches, which is perfect for sealing larger containers and large awkward veggies like squash, for example. Next, you're going to need beeswax pucks. I recommend using organic beeswax only. These are pre-mixed with jojoba oil and resin to create beeswax that allows the wraps to stay flexible at room temperature while also having enough tackiness to cling to the containers and cloth itself, making them super easy to use and reuse over and over again. You'll also need a stir stick and a brush for actually applying the wax to the cotton cloth. First thing we are going to do is set up a double boiler with water, letting it come to a gentle simmer. Place one of your beeswax pucks into the second pot to melt. At the same time, preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit and make sure that you stir the wax occasionally. Next, get yourself a baking tray, ideally one that you can continue using for crafts because beeswax can be quite difficult to remove. Line your baking tray with parchment paper to make the cleanup as easy and seamless as possible. Next, lay your fabrics down on top of the parchment paper. Once the wax puck has fully melted, use your brush to apply the wax sparingly onto the fabric. Remember, you can always easily add more wax later, and you don't have to worry if the wax starts to harden. Take your time applying to all edges of the fabric, making sure that the corners and edges are covered with wax. Next, place the baking tray with the waxed fabric into the oven for about 2 minutes, keeping a close eye on your fabric to make sure it doesn't burn. Feel free to pull out the tray and add more wax if needed. Once the wax appears to be evenly melted on your fabric, pull out the tray. Using a fork, you want to remove the fabric from the tray before the wax dries. Do this carefully and wave the fabric back and forth to dry the wax. This should only take a few minutes. Now your wraps are ready to use. To use the wraps, you simply hold them down on whatever you're trying to wrap for a few seconds so that the heat of your hand molds it to take the shape that you want. Cleaning them is also really easy. Simply rinse under cold water using soap if needed and hang to dry. They are very easy to store and normally last between 3 to 6 months. Just fold them up and store in a dry, cool space. You will know it's time to apply some of that extra beeswax to the fabric when the wraps are no longer holding their shape or when the wraps start to feel more like fabric than they do a waxy wrap. They are biodegradable and always reusable, so you can keep using them over and over again, or simply pop them into your compost bin. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.